excited to see you guys jumping on this call today. This has been a series brought to you from the North Dakota 4-H Animal Science Program Planning Committee. Just some objectives of this series. It's been a lot of really fun talking about animals and showmanship. We cover training and grooming. We talk about showmanship in some of the videos, which has been a lot of fun. Shane's got some really cool things to share tonight. And then we talk about positions, and we talk about you as an exhibitor and how important that is to the people that are around you and the industry. And then we're gonna go ahead and answer questions and answers. And so with that, let me go ahead and introduce our fantastic presenter tonight. Mr. Shane Rangel is actually a North Dakota 4-H alumni, which is pretty exciting. He has raised and exhibited mini Rex rabbits since the start of his 4-H, and really honored that Shane is an ARBA judge, and he's been judging shows at the county, the state, and the national level. So he's going to share some really cool wisdom with you guys tonight. And I hope that you guys can take something home, and I know you will, because I know I sure did. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Shane and let him rock and roll with some great wisdom.
Excellent. Thank you, Leanne. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you're tuning in to learn more about rabbits and a successful rabbit project. Like Leanne said, I started off in 4-H as a younger person. I did start with what I thought were mini Rex rabbits. It turns out they were a cross between mini Rex and something else. I started off not knowing a whole lot, but as I participated in 4-H, I learned a whole lot. So hopefully what I'm able to share with you today is something that's going to enhance not only your showmanship routine, but also your rabbit project as a whole. As you can see on the screen, we're going to talk about helpful equipment to have on hand for your rabbit project. We're going to talk about housing, nutrition. We're going to touch on the different breeds of animals and selecting the best animal for your project. Then we're going to move in to preparing your animal to show. We're going to talk about the showmanship routine and the actual presentation. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about a few tidbits to make you even more successful. So we're going to talk right away about helpful equipment to have on hand, not only when preparing your animal for the show, but also at the show. You're going to want to make sure you have a good rabbit carrier. One is pictured on the slide. I recommend an all-wire carrier with a wire bottom. Those set into a solid base. Those are easy to clean, and it's also helpful to keep your rabbit out of its waste. You're going to want to have a toenail clipper on hand. We're going to talk more about that, but we want to make sure our animals' nails are trimmed. Also pictured on this slide is a tattoo set. Rabbits should be permanently tattooed in their left ear for identification. Now, if you only have 1 or 2 rabbits, maybe you're not quite at a point where you want to go out and purchase a tattoo set, but I wanted you to become familiar with what one might look like, because that's an important tool to have for either 4-Hers or the reputable breeders they purchase their animals from. You're going to want to have crocks or feed dishes. I've pictured one on this slide. I prefer the type that snaps on securely to the side of the cage that prevents the animal from tipping its feed in water. Also, water bottles are a good option for rabbits in their show coops at the show or the county fair. Those might be tougher to have on your attached to your carrier, but that could be done also. You're going to want to make sure you have feed on hand when you're heading to this show, so you're prepared to take care of your animal. Also, a lint roller might be helpful, and we're going to talk more about that as we get into grooming, but it's also going to be helpful for you yourself as an exhibitor to get any loose hair off your clothes that might collect there. We have some powder pictured here. That's to help stop any bleeding if there happens to be some kind of injury on your rabbit. For example, if a toenail is injured or is cut too short. Also note there's a groom and go on this slide. Now there are a number of different show tables available for purchase. I've even made one as a 4-H project quite a few years ago. But that might be helpful for you to use when you're not only practicing your showmanship routine, but also using to prepare your animal as you groom before you take your animal to the show table. Note that a carpet square could be used if you don't have a table. You could just get an inexpensive piece of carpet just to place on top of your carrier to groom your animal. So note that these are helpful. Not all of these tools are requirements to show your rabbit, but they can help you be successful in your 4-H project. We're going to move into housing and talk just briefly on this. We could talk for quite some time about housing. There are many different options, but I've pictured what I prefer to use as a rabbit breeder. They need clean environments, they being rabbits. I prefer all wire cages because the waste falls through the bottom of the cage. You'll note in this 3-hole stacker that there are dropping pans many of you are familiar with to catch the waste. I often line those dropping pans with pine wood shavings to soak up urine and to keep smell down. But just know that whatever type of cage you use, you're going to need to make sure you clean it regularly. Your animal is not going to look terribly presentable if it's coming from an unclean cage. It also makes sure your animal's healthy, and that is so important for a successful rabbit project. Note that rabbits can be housed both indoors and outdoors. I've housed rabbits in both settings, but they need to be protected from predators, and they shouldn't be placed where they're going to catch direct drafts or prolonged direct sunlight. That sunlight could cause heat stroke, or it will cause the coat to fade and become rustier, and that's not terribly attractive. So keep that in mind when placing your rabbit cages or hutches. Make sure there is good ventilation and airflow. That's very important for good respiratory health. And if you want to learn more about animal husbandry, specifically rabbit, I recommend becoming a member of the ARBA. The Domestic Rabbits magazine and their membership guidebook have very helpful, very much helpful articles within them. So check that out, become a member, and take advantage of some of those resources. So we're going to talk just briefly about nutrition. I'm not going to tell you there's one feed that works best for you and your rabbit. I have fed a number of different feeds. But I do recommend that you do a little bit of research. Ask the breeder you get your rabbit from. What feed are they feeding? How much are they feeding? That'll be helpful as you move forward feeding your rabbit. Note that there are different protein percentages in different feeds. Typically, the larger the rabbit, the more protein is needed in their diet. But just know that many feeds are good feeds. I've fed a number of feeds without any type of issue. Make sure you practice good biosecurity. We want to make sure that we're not unintentionally spreading any kind of illness. So avoid borrowing buckets or feed. Try to keep your rabbit on the same feed that it's eating at home. Don't switch feeds last minute at the fair, and make sure that they're getting a bunch of clean water at all times. I only feed my rabbits once a day. Some people feed their rabbits twice a day. Figure out what works best for you, but just know that most rabbit pellets are complete pellets, so you shouldn't have to supplement. I do supplement on occasion, but that's just by choice. I do feed some hay to my rabbits. Oftentimes I'll put hay in their rabbit carriers to help them continue eating if they're going on long trips. But note that that is optional. All right, so now we're going to transition from the equipment and housing piece and feeding rabbits into selecting your rabbit project. Note that there are 49 breeds recognized by the American Rabbit Breeders Association, and this link highlighted on this page will show each one of those with links to their breed specialty club. Each breed has unique characteristics, as you can see. 5 are pictured on this slide. I raise Mini Rex. They're a small breed with a very short plush coat. The New Zealand is a commercial breed raised for its meat-producing characteristics. The Himalayan in the middle has a cylindrical body type, which is the only breed with that particular body type. And then there are breeds that are full arch breeds, and they often move freely when judging, like the English Spot. Also included on this page is the French Angora, which is a wool breed. And we'll talk a little bit more about wool and some of those requirements, but do some research before you purchase a rabbit to learn what's the best fit for you. I encourage you to consider size. There are giant breeds. Some of these rabbits can get to be 20 or more pounds, but know that those might be kind of hard for you to handle if you're a smaller person. Also, do some research to learn the activity level and disposition of different breeds. Some of these full arch breeds need to have a higher strung disposition so they move naturally and show themselves off well, but note that they might not be as cuddly and as easy to handle as other breeds. So keep that in mind. Also, think about grooming requirements for different breeds. As you can see, this French Angora has a lot of wool, and that takes quite a commitment to groom every day. So if you're not able to sacrifice a minimum of 15 minutes every day grooming animals, your animal that's a wool breed, you might want to consider a different animal for your project. We're going to just touch briefly on varieties and classes. Many of you are familiar with what varieties are, but for those of you who are new, a variety is a division within a breed, like it talks about on the slide, determined by color. For example, Mini Rex have 20 varieties. The black and white rabbit on this slide is a broken black. The variety of the other rabbit on this slide is a castor. So you're going to want to make sure you know the variety of your animal. And if you're going to consider breeding at some point, make sure that if you are selecting more than one animal, make sure those colors are compatible. Now, when we talk about classes, we're referring to divisions within varieties and breeds. So there are 4 class breeds and 6 class breeds. Well, what does that mean? Well, 4 class breeds are typically smaller breeds, and they're divided into 4 classes: senior bucks and senior does. They're 6 months or older, and then junior bucks and junior does, and they're under 6 months of age. Most breeds are 4 class breeds, but note that larger breeds might have 6 classes, and that those 2 extra classes are the intermediates, and they're from 6 to 8 months old. The intermediate class was created because some of these larger breeds take longer to develop. So make sure you're aware of these different classes before you enter your rabbits. You make sure your rabbit's entered correctly, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. So before you sign your rabbit up for your 4-H Achievement Days or county fair, verify that your information is correct. Double check to make sure that you know what the breed of your rabbit is. Double check the variety and make sure you know if it's a buck or doe. And know too that sometimes breeders or the people who sell the rabbits make mistakes. So double check that to make sure things are correct. Also take a look at the birth dates on your rabbit's pedigrees to make sure that they're entered in the right class, junior versus senior, for example. And then make sure you list the correct tattoo. We want to make sure those tattoos match up. That is important. If you don't know what breed your rabbit is, if you don't know what color or variety your rabbit is, please ask for help. We'd much rather you ask for help than just throw something together and have it wrong. If your 4-H leader isn't able to help you, reach out to a reputable breeder in your area. If you don't know of one, I recommend joining the ARBA. They have a list of breeders in your area that you, I'm sure, can reach out and contact. Most breeders are really helpful to answer questions. This is a really important tool. This is the American Rabbit Breeders Association Standard of Perfection. And this book has a lot of information. It talks about what each breed should look like. There are 49 breed standards in this book. It tells you what the body type should be like, what the fur should be like, what the color or markings should be like. So I recommend purchasing a copy. There is some expense to purchase this, but it's well worth the investment. Within this book are lists of disqualifications. There are also faults listed in this book to learn not only what you want your rabbit to look like, but maybe what you want to stay away from. It's an important tool, and it's a really helpful study guide as you prepare your showmanship routine. Also know that there are other educational resources available. This is just one example. You can learn a whole lot in some of these publications. I really appreciate the good visuals that are on this page. These are pictures of disqualifications. Sometimes it's hard to read a definition and think about what that would look like. So some of these resources really bring those words to life with good visuals. Before we get going any further, I want you to know that it's important to study just basic rabbit terminology. You're going to want to know some of these basic terms in case the judge requests you to do something to show the judge a certain skill using this term. It also makes you sound more knowledgeable too when you're talking to the judge. So instead of the rabbit's backside, it's the hindquarter. Instead of its back foot, it's the hock. These are important terms, so familiarize yourself with those. Before the show, months before the show or the county fair or 4-H achievement days, you need to be practicing your showmanship routine. It's unrealistic to think just a day or two practicing right before the show is going to make you the most successful. So practice makes perfect. Make sure well before you go to the event, you trim your rabbit's toenails. Those toenails can be very sharp, and I would hate for those toenails to get caught on something or for the toenails to scratch you or the judge. So trim those in advance. Also, I've been the 4-H'er who's trimmed toenails right before I was going to bring my rabbit up to the table, and I trimmed them too short and the rabbit started bleeding, and then I panicked and got really nervous, and it was stressful for the rabbit. So get that out of the way well ahead of time so you don't have to worry about it. Also, be sure you're evaluating your rabbit periodically well before the show. Do health checks or practice your showmanship routine. This will help you detect if anything's off with your rabbit. This will help you notice maybe the start of sore hock so you can do something about it and make sure the animal is healthy and is an exhibit you're proud to take to the fair. So I have a video here that talks a little bit more about this, but before we get to that video that shows show day grooming, I want you to evaluate your animal. Before you take your rabbit up to the table, make sure it's healthy. I would hate for you to bring a rabbit up that maybe has signs of a cold, because that is contagious, and we need to be respectful as exhibitors and make sure we exhibit healthy animals. I recommend that you remove any loose hair on your rabbit by dampening your hands and just gently running them through the coat, and I'll show you that here in a moment. But note that some wool breeds will require additional grooming. That might include brushing, that might include using a blower. I don't have a video of that. I don't raise wool breeds, but I do recommend that if you do choose to go that route, you connect yourself with a mentor who can show you how to do that. And again, make sure those toenails are trimmed.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and show Shane grooming. And so go ahead and turn up your volume. And if for some reason it might be blurry on your screen today, I promise you this recording will come across very clear. So you'll be able to come back and watch these videos later. So here we go.
There are several ways to groom your rabbit's coat. One option is using a lint roller. To use that lint roller, you simply run it through the rabbit's coat gently, and as you roll that lint roller, it picks up the loose hair. You might be able to see some of that sticking. Another option is to use a rag that's wet with water. Be sure to only use water. You just use this rag to dampen your hands. They shouldn't be wet. And you run your hand gently through the coat. As you do that, your hand just naturally picks up loose hair, and then you're able to brush it to the side. Both of these options are good options because it picks up that loose hair without damaging prime coat. Also keep in mind, these options for grooming are good for mini breeds, but there may be other things to do for Angoras who have wool.
All right, perfect.
I want to reinforce something I said in that clip just a moment ago. We want to make sure that whatever we're doing to the coat, we're not damaging the prime coat, the coat that's attached. We want to be gentle as we groom. If we're brushing, we're probably going to be pulling hair that's actually attached to the skin, and that's going to affect not only the density of the coat, but that doesn't feel good for our rabbits. So we need to be gentle when we groom the coats.
Such a good addition. Thank you so much.
Here's a showmanship score sheet. This showmanship score sheet, there are 2 pages of it, and this is modeled after the ARBA showmanship rubric. This is a great scaffolding or structure for you as you prepare your showmanship routine. These are things to consider including, and we'll talk more about this as we go in your showmanship routine. As you can see, not only does it talk about actions the judge would like to see, but also terms you might consider including as you go through your showmanship routine. And that's just a continuation. Also note that at the bottom, there's a box labeled knowledge. The judge will often ask questions of you, if not in the middle of your routine, then at the end. So be prepared for any potential questions he or she might ask you. The first step is to properly carry your rabbit. I've seen animals picked up by the scruff of the neck, and we'll talk more about that, but we never ever do that. Instead, we gently pick our rabbit up from underneath, and we keep the rabbit close to our body as pictured. We want to make sure we're supporting the animal. See how the boy has his arm both underneath and cupping the hind quarter of the rabbit, and he's keeping that rabbit tight to him. I like to think of it as carrying my rabbit kind of like a football with the nose and eyes tucked into my elbow. That helps the animal feel secure. Oftentimes I'll also take that other hand and put it over the top of the rabbit just as an extra security measure. When you get your rabbit to the table, we're going to start by posing the rabbit with the front feet. We're going to make sure those hind toes are even with the eye of the rabbit, and we're going to double check both feet before moving on to the back feet. Notice how this young person is cupping the face of this rabbit. That's just to gently restrain the animal so it doesn't keep on moving. You'll also see me in videos with my hand over the rabbit's head. I'm not pushing hard or pushing forcefully down on that head. I'm simply keeping my hand there to restrain the animal to pose it. After we set those front feet, then we move to hind foot placement. We're going to make sure the toes of the hind feet are even with the front of the rabbit's hip. Now, this does not hold true for all breeds, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but this is good basic information for posing most breeds. After the feet are set, make sure that that tail isn't tucked underneath. Sometimes it does happen. You just naturally take the tail and put it in its typical position. Here are some examples of what you want and what you don't want. So as you can see with this ideal pose, those front feet are lined up pretty well with the eye. The front toes are lined up with the hip. Now, if we look at this overposed animal, you can see the hind feet kind of drift a little too far back. And it's hard to see in this image, but those back toes are way too far forward. As I actually took these pictures, and as I was doing it, it was so uncomfortable for this rabbit. I just had to stop. It doesn't feel good for the rabbits to be overposed. So make sure you are posing the rabbit, but you're not stuffing them up and over tucking them. The underposed rabbit is very flat. He's kind of laying out on the table, and that's not what we want our rabbits to look like either. Sometimes they will slouch if they're hot. Many of our county fairs are in the summer, and it gets pretty warm for our rabbits. So I just recommend that you set your rabbit, and of course your rabbit will move. They are rabbits, but that you just naturally reset your rabbit. Be sure as you move your rabbit on the carpet, you're not dragging the rabbit by its toenails. Always pick your rabbit up if you're going to move it. This is a posing video. It's going to show me demonstrating kind of what we just talked about.
To pose your rabbit, after setting it on the table, align the front feet with the eye. Then gently cup the head and set those back feet so the front of the hind toes are aligned with the hip. Now, be mindful that I'm posing a mini Rex. Different breeds are posed in different ways. A Netherland Dwarf or a Holland Lop will be posed with their head high on the shoulders, well off the table. Other breeds are running breeds and are not posed, so keep that in mind. But with that being said, for the vast majority of breeds, they're posed in this way.
Like I talked about in that video, make sure you're posing your breed correctly. Double check with other 4-H'ers, your 4-H leader, the breeder you bought your rabbit from. We don't want to pose Netherland Dwarfs with their head on the table like a mini Rex. That just wouldn't be fitting for that breed. So make sure you do your research so you know how to pose your rabbit. Ask people before you get your rabbit, how do I pose this rabbit if you're unfamiliar, so you can learn that from the get-go. Be mindful that some breeds are not posed. They're supposed to move naturally on the table. Just keep that in mind because that might be kind of tough to do for showmanship. So once you've arrived for your showmanship routine and you've posed your rabbit on the table, double check the foot position is correct. If your rabbit is posed with a side view to the judge, double check the foot placement on the side you can't see. That is important because that's what the judge is looking at. So make sure you double check that foot placement and then take your hands off the rabbit. Notice these exhibitors are standing back with their hands at their sides. You can even put your hands behind your back. We don't want to keep our hands heavy on the rabbit. That can be uncomfortable for the rabbit. They can get really hot when we do that. So we want to pose the rabbit, then take our hands off and put our hands back on to readjust or show the judge certain skills. When it's your turn to begin your showmanship routine, I recommend keeping that introduction pretty short. Greet the judge, have a smile on your face, tell the judge your name, and tell the judge what your rabbit is. For example, a video later on, you will hear me say that this is my Castor Mini Rex Senior Doe. Be mindful that not only when you're practicing your routine, but at the show table, we're not putting a rabbit on a slippery surface. That can cause the rabbit to get really nervous and panic. So if you arrive to the table and for some reason there's not an appropriate surface to pose your rabbit on, ask someone who's helping facilitate the event where you should put your rabbit. When we begin our showmanship routine after introducing ourselves, we're going to start by examining the eyes and ears of the rabbit. We'll start with the eyes. We're just going to gently verify that the eyes are clean and clear and bright. We want to make sure that they're the right eye color also. I'll demonstrate causing a rabbit to blink in a video here later in the presentation, but make sure when you try to get your rabbit to blink, you're not poking your rabbit in the eye. That's uncomfortable for the rabbit. Important terms or relevant terms you might want to include in your presentation are listed here. They are disqualifications. For example, moon eye is a white film over the cornea of the eye. So when you include terms like this, your rabbit might not have it, but it shows the judge you know what you're talking about. After we talk about the eyes, then we move to the ears. I recommend starting with the left ear of the rabbit, so you can start by reading the tattoo. We want ears to be clean and healthy. We don't want any torn or missing portions. And relevant terms you could talk about include mites, ear cankers, or the carriage. We want to make sure that the ears are well furred. Now note, some rabbits have lop ears, so we just gently lift those ears up to show the judge. We start with the left ear and then we turn the rabbit gently to show the right ear. Turning a rabbit over can be a challenge. This is an area I see many 4-Hers struggle with, and it's not just in North Dakota, it's all over. I've judged county fairs in quite a few states. So I recommend to turn your rabbit over that you firmly grasp the rabbit by the base of the ears. Note that we're not pulling on the ears. This is just us restraining the ears so the rabbit doesn't toss and turn from side to side. We're not going to scruff the rabbit. We don't scruff rabbits because, number one, it hurts rabbits, but two, it also damages the flesh and fur condition of the shoulder. So we never scruff animals. Instead, we firmly grasp the base of the ear, and then we rotate the animal into our other hand, and then rest the animal gently on the table. And there's a video coming up here on the next slide that shows exactly what I'm talking about.
I'll now show you how to properly and safely turn your rabbit over for examination. Start by turning your animal so it's facing you. Use the hand that you write with, your dominant hand, and place your hand on the rabbit's shoulders, cupping them. Be sure to have your thumb in front of the rabbit's ears. If your rabbit happens to have lop ears, just gently lift them up so they're in a position like this. Instead of pulling on the ears, you're simply going to squeeze the base of the ears with your thumb to your hand. Your extra hand will go on the rabbit's hind quarter, and this hand will help support the animal as you turn it over. While firmly squeezing the ears, you're going to rotate the animal back. Once you're in this position, lightly rest the hind quarter of your animal on the table. This will allow you to take your hand out from underneath. It will free it so you may conduct the examination.
Note that was a pretty smooth motion for me. Now, I've judged rabbits for quite a few years and I've had a lot of practice. It's not always that easy the first time around, especially if you haven't done it, practiced it with your rabbit before. So this is why we practice, and we practice weeks and months in advance so your rabbit is trained and used to being turned over. Again, make sure you have a firm grasp of the ears. That's something I commonly see. 4-Hers are sometimes hesitant to grasp those ears, and when they loosen their control, the rabbit tips over to the left or right side. After your rabbit is turned over, we can start examining the nose and the teeth, and we'll move into the feet, sexing the rabbit, and the tail. When we're looking at the nose, we want to make sure the nose is clean and clear. If there's any white nasal discharge, that would be the sign of snuffles or a cold, and that's a disqualification, and it could indicate a contagious illness. So if we see that before we go to the show, we're going to keep our rabbit home to be respectful of both our rabbit and other people's exhibits. We're also looking to make sure the nose is the right color. Some breeds have foreign spots, which are disqualifications. Then we're going to look at the teeth. We want to make sure that the top incisors overlap the bottom. Malocclusion is when the opposite holds true. Budding teeth is a disqualification where the teeth actually don't overlap and they meet head on. So some of these relevant terms are related to the alignments of the teeth. Also, if a tooth is broken or missing, that is a disqualification. So we want to make sure both top and lower incisors are present.
Just because I'm curious, what if my rabbit actually does have a disqualification? Does that mean I can't show him in showmanship?
That's a really good question. If your rabbit has a disqualification, point it out to the judge. I know I would be impressed as a judge to know that you're aware of that. So that might disqualify your rabbit from other competitions, but it would not disqualify your rabbit from showmanship. Now, with that being said, if your rabbit had an ailment that's a disqualification, like the cold we just talked about, do not use that rabbit for showmanship.
Thank you for answering that question.
Of course. Then we're going to move to the front feet and legs of the rabbit. You can see that this exhibitor gently pulled these legs up. Now, sometimes as you turn your rabbit over, they'll naturally be in that position, which is great. So you might not have to manipulate the feet and legs much. We want to make sure the front feet are well furred. And to examine the toenails, we're going to press into the pad of the foot, and that's going to reveal the toenails. Please count the toenails in your showmanship routine. There should be 4 toenails on each front foot, along with a dew claw. We want to make sure the toenails are the correct color as called for by the ARBA standard. Mismatched toenails are typically disqualifications, as are missing toenails. Some breeds really emphasize bone, so this would be a good time to talk about that. After we finish with the front feet and legs, we're going to quickly examine the belly, and we don't have to spend a whole lot of time in our showmanship routine here, but we are going to run our hand over the belly. We want to make sure it's smooth. There shouldn't be any lumps or bumps, and that could indicate an abscess or a tumor or some type of abnormality. It's not terribly common, but we want to make sure we do that. And then once we get to these back feet, we get to focus on the straightness, not only of the legs, but also of the feet. For example, if the toes, the hind feet have toes that are pointing out and those hocks are really angling in, that could indicate cow hocks, which is a fault. Not necessarily a disqualification, but we want those back feet and legs to be straight. We're going to press into the foot like we did for the front feet and count those toenails. There are only 4 toenails on each back foot. We're going to count them out loud. And as you do this, make sure you're showing the judge the best you can. You want to show the judge not only that the toenails are there, but that they're the right color. Again, we're going to be on the lookout for broken or missing toenails, but we shouldn't have to worry too much about that if we're trimming our rabbit's toenails regularly. We also want to be on the lookout for sore hocks. That's where the fur of our rabbit's hock has worn away and has become inflamed and possibly infected. If your rabbit has some spots on its hock where the hair has worn off, but it's not inflamed, it's not infected, it looks good, it's just some hair missing. That's okay, that's not sore hocks. Sore hocks is when it's inflamed and bleeding. And if your rabbit is displaying sore hocks, you're gonna wanna keep your rabbit home so you can doctor it up. Now we're gonna talk about sexing our rabbits. This is uncomfortable for some 4-H'ers, but it's incredibly important. You wanna make sure you know if your rabbit is a buck or doe. Some people house multiple rabbits together, and we don't want any unexpected surprises in terms of unplanned litters. So important terms to include when sexing your rabbit include, of course, buck or doe. We also want to be on the lookout for vent disease, where the vent is inflamed and infected. Split penis is a disqualification in bucks. And we want to make sure in bucks that they have both testicles descended and present if they are seniors. After we sex our rabbit, and I guess before we move on, make sure you show the rabbit what you're doing. Just kind of poking into that area is not good enough. We want to make sure we fully reveal the sex organ of our rabbit to the judge so he or she knows we know what we're doing. Then after that, we're going to move to the tail and simply show the judge that the tail is straight. It has some life to it. It's not permanently sent to either side. A bobtail is a tail that's too short. It's actually missing the end portion. This next video is going to talk about sexing a rabbit. We're not going to worry so much about showing the tail right now, but this is a skill that's very important and I want you to become fluent in it.
To sex your rabbit, begin by finding the base of the rabbit's tail. I recommend taking your thumb and pressing lightly at the base. Then take your pointer finger and gently press above the sex organ. This will reveal the penis or vulva. Be sure to fully expose the sex of your animal and show your skill to the judge.
Thank you, Leanne. That's a really important skill. Sometimes 4-H'ers have a hard time sexing their rabbit. Maybe they've done it at home successfully, but let's say your rabbit has kind of long fur and it can be kind of confusing once you get there, especially if you're nervous when you're in the middle of showmanship. Always find the tail first. That will help guide you. After you sex your rabbit and finish showing that to the judge and examining the tail, then we're going to gently return our rabbit to the table and pose it. We're going to roll it back to its feet gently. It should be a smooth motion. We're going to set the front feet, and then we're going to move to those back feet and set those. There's a lot to talk about regarding fur, but we're going to keep it fairly basic. You're going to examine the fur of your rabbit by stroking it from the tail to the ears. Helpful terms to talk about include density. That's how thick a rabbit's coat is. Texture is another important word, and that's what the coat feels like. Sheen only is present or should only be present in breeds with satin coats or that are satinized. This includes satins, mini satins, satin angoras, and that's where the coat is a mutation so that it reflects light. Luster is brightness or brilliance of fur, but make sure if you're using terms like sheen and luster that you're using them appropriately. We don't want to talk about sheen in a mini Rex because mini Rex don't have sheen. Rollback is when a type of normal coat, when you run your hand over the top of the rabbit and it rolls gently and slowly back into place. Flyback is when you run your hand over the rabbit and the coat flies very quickly back into place. Rex and mini Rex have Rex coats, which is another mutation similar to satin breeds. This mutation is where the undercoat is the same length as the guard hair, and it gives it a short, really plush feel. A standing coat is unique to silver fox. That's when you run your hand over the rabbit and the coat does not fall back into place, but it stands straight up. After you've examined the coat of your rabbit and have talked to the judge about the density and texture and maybe included some information on color, you're going to evaluate the body type and flesh condition of your rabbit. You're just going to briefly tell the judge what you like and maybe would like to see differently on your rabbit. As you do that, you're going to start at the front of your rabbit with the head and ears, moving to the shoulder, midsection, and hindquarter. And I recommend you use terms like excellent, good, fair, poor. Condition relates to the state of the flesh and also of the fur. We do want our rabbits to be balanced. And finish means it relates to condition. A good finished coat is one that's prime, that has even length, a rabbit that's not molting. After you've come to the conclusion of your presentation, make sure you thank the judge. Return that rabbit to its pose, and then ask if he or she has any questions. When the judge asks you questions, he or she will likely do that. Answer them honestly. If you really don't know, just say, I don't know, or I'm not sure. I appreciate honesty as a judge, and I can, for the most part, identify if an exhibitor is kind of making things up on the fly. So if you don't know an answer, just be honest and say, I don't know. And forgive yourself. No one knows everything, and we're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. There is so much to showmanship. Just do your best, and if you don't know the answer to one question, you might know the answer to the next. Make sure that you are wearing appropriate 4-H attire. We'll talk more about this in a few slides. I recommend you wear long sleeves if possible. These young people have show coats on. Those are great options. I don't know if an apron is allowed as part of your 4-H attire where you're at, but it might be something to consider if that is okay. I recommend aprons and long sleeves because it protects you from any scratches that might happen. Rabbits can scratch even if their toenails are clipped. And it also makes sure that a bunch of rabbit hair doesn't get all over your clothes. Make sure you're smiling and have a pleasant demeanor. You don't have to smile the whole time, but at least show the judge that you're happy to be there. Do have good eye contact with the judge. That doesn't mean that you need to stare down the judge at all times. Keep some awareness of, well, actually quite a lot of awareness with where your rabbit's at too. But we want to make sure we're paying attention to the judge in case he or she would like us to do something, and make sure you're following all directions that are given. We're going to talk a little bit about rabbit misbehavior. As we know, rabbits just don't always sit still. They might act differently if they're at the show too, because there are likely going to be a lot of strange noises. There might be quite a few people in the background, and that can be kind of scary for rabbits. So we're going to prepare ourselves knowing that rabbits are going to move on us and do some expected things. Keeping calm is so important. Take lots of deep breaths. It will be okay. Rabbits may bite or nip, especially if they become hot and stressed. Sometimes other rabbits might bother them, and they might become somewhat aggressive. That's okay. Just reset your rabbit. If you are at the table, like these 4-Hers here in this picture, and your rabbit starts to fight or breed with the rabbit next door, it's okay. Just move your rabbit and reset. It shouldn't be a big issue because you should be paying good attention to what your rabbit's doing, so you could separate them without any problem. Also, when you're at the judging table, make sure that not only are focused on the judge, but you're not visiting with exhibitors next to you. That's very distracting for those other exhibitors. It can be distracting to the judge too. So make sure you're focused on your rabbit and the judge during showmanship, and then you can visit with your friends afterward. And like this last bullet says, the more you practice, the better you'll be, and the more prepared and trained your rabbit will be. So know that rabbit misbehavior does happen, but keep calm, take lots of deep breaths, and if you're paying attention, everything will be okay. Now, this is an example of a rabbit showmanship routine. Now, it's been a long time since I've done showmanship, but I wanted you to at least get an idea of what I'm talking about as we go through these slides. Now, know that every judge is different and they might use a different scorecard. They might not even use a scorecard. But if you use this as a reference tool, you'll be pretty spot on when it comes to your showmanship routine. So as you watch this video, not only pay attention for how I move through the presentation, but also listen for how I might include breed-specific information or talk about potential disqualifications.
Hello, I'm Shane Ringdahl, and this is my Castor Mini Rex Senior Doe. I'll begin my showmanship routine by examining the eyes of my animal. Castor Mini Rex should have a dark brown eye, and as you can see, my doe displays that proper eye color. As I gently wave my finger in front of the rabbit's eye, it blinks slightly. That indicates the rabbit is not blind. I'll do the same on the other side. You'll notice that there is no white film over the cornea of my rabbit. That may indicate the rabbit has moon eye or wall eye, both of which are disqualifications. There's no weepiness to the eye. The eyes are clear and bright. I'll now move to examining the ears of my rabbit. I'll start with the left ear. As I gently open the ear, you'll notice that my rabbit is permanently tattooed. The tattoo is RVC12. The ears are of good substance and good length. I'll gently turn my animal so you can see the opposing ear. These ears are clean and smooth. They're well furred and of good substance. A disqualification would be if there was a torn or missing portion of the ear that noticeably detracted from the overall appearance of my rabbit. I'll now continue the examination of my rabbit. After turning my rabbit over, we'll first examine the nose of my animal. You'll notice it's clean and clear. White nasal discharge would indicate a cold, which is a disqualification from competition. As I examine the teeth of my rabbit, you'll notice the top incisors overlap the bottom. This indicates proper alignment. If the teeth were to meet head-on, that would indicate simple malocclusion, which is a disqualification. If the lower incisors overlap the upper, that would indicate malocclusion, which is yet another disqualification. As I move to the front feet of my animal, you'll notice that the rabbit has a well-furred front foot. The same holds true in the opposing foot. As I gently press into the foot pad, you'll notice the rabbit has 1, 2, 3, 4 toenails with a dew claw. They're all dark and matching. The same holds true on the other foot. It has 1, 2, 3, 4 toenails and a dew claw. Disqualifications of the toenails might include white, mismatched, or missing toenails. You'll notice that the front feet of my rabbit are straight. So I gently run my hand over the belly of my rabbit. It's smooth and firm. There are no bumps or abnormalities, which would be disqualifications. You'll notice the hind feet of my rabbit are well furred. They're even and straight. It has 1, 2, 3, 4 toenails on the right foot and another 1, 2, 3, 4 toenails on the left. They're dark and matching. A disqualification that may be seen on the hocks include sore hocks. That's a disqualification where the fur is missing and the hawk is inflamed and infected. I'll now sex my rabbit. You can see that my rabbit is a doe. Common disqualifications in bucks include split penises or missing testicles. Vent disease, which is an inflammation of the genital area, is also a disqualification. As I move to the tail is straight with good life. It has proper length. Disqualification of the tail might include if it were set permanently to one side or if it were bobbed, missing the end portion. I'll now examine the fur or coat of my rabbit. Many Rex have a Rex coat where the undercoat is the same length as the guard hair, making for a short, plush, soft coat. As I run my hand over the coat, it displays good smoothness and evenness. It has good texture. As I press my hand into the coat bounces back and offers good resistance, displaying good density. As I blow into the coat, there are 3 distinct bands of color on the hair shaft. The dark slate is the undercolor. The intermediate band is a rich rufous red, which is tipped in black. This is good, correct castor color. I'll now briefly give you comments on the head, ear, body type, and flesh condition of my rabbit. The rabbit has a good feminine head and a good, short, thick ear. The shoulders have good depth. The rabbit blends well through the midsection into a well-filled lower hindquarter. If I could change a characteristic of my animal, I'd like to see it display more depth at the hip. With that being said, this concludes my showmanship routine. You're welcome to ask any questions you might have.
I hope that video helped you put together everything we've talked about so far in terms of the showmanship routine. I started at the front end, I worked my way back, I turned my animal over, I examined it underneath, and then after turning the rabbit back over, I examined the fur, the color, I talked about the body type of the animal, giving some good constructive feedback, and then I concluded my presentation. A little bit of this is a review from earlier. We talked a little bit about 4-H dress code. Make sure you are dressed appropriately for your 4-H event. Only wear aprons if they're allowed. Make sure you're protecting yourself like we talked about earlier. Long sleeves can be helpful. You're going to want to at least have basic knowledge of your rabbit project. If you're a first-time junior exhibitor, I don't expect you to know quite as much as what I do and have a presentation that I would put together. So just do your best, stick with the basics. Be prepared to have a showmanship routine, something similar to what I just showed you, but know too, especially for you juniors, that the judge might ask you to show you certain things one at a time and kind of break it down for you. Remember that you're a mentor and you're an ambassador to the rabbit industry and for 4-H. It's interesting, during that video, I just peeked into the chat box and I saw some of you participants answering others' questions. That's great. I love to see that helpfulness, and that's a great example of being an ambassador. And remember, this is a learning experience. We're doing this to not only have fun, but to grow. If you make a mistake, that's okay. I've made many mistakes and I will continue to make some, but the important thing is that we learn from our mistakes. So with that being said, that's our presentation for today. Now, I hope there are some questions I can help answer out there. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Leanne, to field those.
Wow, Shane, that was so amazing. I'm getting lots of really cool comments in the chat box just saying, wow, I learned a lot. That was amazing. So And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to all of my colleagues that have been recording your awesome questions. So thank you for posting those, and that way Shane can field those now.
Well, thanks, Leanne. I would concur with your comments about how good this really went and how well Shane did. And I think maybe some of these questions that we're going to ask, you've touched on as well a little bit, but maybe expand on in just a little bit. Does the quality of your rabbit affect your showmanship scores?
Good question. No. When I judge showmanship, I'm judging the exhibitor. Now, with that being said, we want to make sure the rabbit is presentable. We don't want to bring a rabbit to showmanship that's in extremely poor flesh condition or it might be sick. That's not going to reflect well on us. But if our rabbit is not the best in show winner, hey, that's okay. Maybe when you give those comments, when you evaluate your animal toward the end, you talk a little bit about what you would like to see different in terms of physical characteristics. That will impress judges. I know it would impress me. And that shows great depth of knowledge. So no, the judge should not be judging you in showman, or excuse me, the rabbit in showmanship. The judge is judging you and your skills and knowledge.
One more question here. Do you recommend hair brushes, or is a lint roller sufficient in conditioning the fur for show?
Sure. I have never used a brush. I find many of those bristles are a little too rough. Soft bristles could be a good option, but I've found they don't do a great job collecting fur. If I use my damp hands or that lint roller, the hair tends to stick better to my hands and do a better job.
You mentioned many disqualifications when exhibiting rabbits. Let's say you have a rabbit with a split penis. Would you consider finding a different rabbit, or would you consider, or what would you consider if you have a permanent disqualification with your individual rabbit?
Sure. Well, just because a rabbit has a split penis, that doesn't mean it wouldn't be a good pet rabbit for a 4-H'er. Now, with that being said, if you expect to do well showing your rabbit in the regular rabbit show, if it has a split penis, it will likely not turn out well. You'll likely get a white or red ribbon, depending on where you're at and who the judge is. Now, with that being said, that shouldn't affect you negatively in showmanship, especially if you point out to the judge that your rabbit does have that disqualification.
You mentioned it's important to trim the rabbit's toenails. Would it be okay for a rabbit to dig in dirt or maybe scratch on surfaces to file those down, or do you still recommend trimming the toenails?
Sure. You know, if you're letting your rabbit do that, I don't see a big problem with that, but I would still at least double check the nails. I still try to take at least the tips of the nails off when I trim, just to take the sharp edges off. Now you might sorry, I'm tripping over my tongue. You might want to do that several days in advance, but I would still trim those nails. It's easier to trim toenails if they are white toenails, then you can see the quick. It's tougher on colored toenails, but I just recommend just take the tips off.
Very good answer. If you have a rabbit that has got sore hocks, can it be treated?
Yes, you can treat sore hocks. First of all, I would like to make sure that the owner has some kind of resting mat or board the rabbit can sit on in its cage to get its feet off the wire if that's a factor in sore hocks. And then yes, you can treat sore hocks. There are a number of different options to do that. I would recommend you visit with your local vet to figure out what the best route to go is with sore hocks.
This is coming from a judge of rabbit shows. Where would a judge find the questions to ask kids during showmanship?
Great question. Well, that's just it. There are so many questions one can ask. That's typically up to the discretion of the judge. But if you would like some good questions, at least in my mind, you're welcome to reach out to me. And I would think if you reach out to Leanne, she can connect you with my contact information.
I sure can.
This is a question that's come up from even our family, is that how many years can you show the same rabbit? Is there an age limit on senior bucks and does?
Sure, sure. Well, I think it would depend on your county. Counties might have different rules regarding how many years you can show the same animal. You know, if there was no limit in terms of how many years you could show that animal, I would encourage the 4-H'er to keep in mind that an old rabbit is not typically going to excel on the show table. As rabbits old, they lose condition, whether it be flesh or fur. They might get a little bit longer in the midsection. So if the rules don't limit you, I would say go for it, but just be mindful that your rabbit might not be as competitive as an older animal as it was when it was young.
Very good. How many rabbits can you show or exhibit at a particular show?
Again, I think it all depends on the show or your county fair with in terms of the limits on numbers. I have shown quite a few rabbits at shows, but I've also shown one rabbit at a show. Remember, it only takes one rabbit to win, but just make sure that if you do bring quite a few rabbits, you are prepared to take care of them at that event and get them all up to the table when they need to be.
I have two more questions. Rabbits are considered a minor species. If you have vet questions or maybe some of the things that we talked about here as far as disqualifications or health of rabbits, where do you go for professional advice to maybe treat a rabbit for an illness or disease?
Sure. Well, in addition to reaching out to a vet, let's say your local vet really specializes in dogs and cats, but maybe doesn't know a whole lot about rabbits. If you're looking for another source of information, I do recommend joining the American Rabbit Breeders Association. We do have vets who are members and write helpful articles in our publications. So those are good resources. Also talk with reputable breeders who've raised rabbits for quite a long time. They might be able to point you in the right direction in terms of what you can do to keep your rabbit healthy.
About keeping your rabbit in proper condition, what feeds would you recommend? Are show feeds more desirable? Is there anything you can talk about from the nutrition side that would be helpful to an individual showing rabbits?
Sure. I feed a really basic feed. The feed store I go to has a show formula, and I don't feed the show formula. I feed the basic stuff. It's still a complete feed. Now, if I ever feel the need to supplement, I might give some rolled oats on top as a top dressing, maybe some black oil sunflower seeds. If the rabbit maybe needs a little more weight, I might put a little calf manna on. But before you do any of that, do your research to make sure you're not only feeding the correct supplement, but that you're feeding the right amount.
If you have a rabbit that chews on your plastic feeders and everything else, is that an indication of a mineral deficiency?
No, rabbits love chewing. They chew, chew, chew. Rabbits' teeth actually continually grow throughout their lifespan, so they actually need to chew to wear their teeth down. So no, that's not, I would not think that's an indication of a mineral deficiency. They like to chew. That's why I use metal feeders if at all possible, because it's hard to ruin those.
Well, that's all the questions that I have accumulated here. If there's maybe Kurt or Brian or Leanne, if you have additional questions.
Yes, I caught some. When you were going through your routine, Shane, a question came up. Should I start with the eyes or the ears first? Which does it matter? The individual asked, do I go with the ears first because of showing the tattoo?
Sure. If you feel comfortable doing that, I would say go for it. As long as you cover both the eyes and the ears, I would, as a judge, I would not penalize you for starting with, say, the ears before the eyes. I think either way is just fine.
If my rabbit gets DQ'd at this year's show, can I show it next year?
Unless there are rules saying otherwise, I would think you could. Now, if your rabbit was disqualified due to an illness, I would verify that that rabbit is no longer ill. If you are going to show your rabbit the next year, be prepared to be disqualified again, because some of those disqualifications are permanent and they won't go away or change.
Can I show my rabbit whose toe has been broken? Not the toenail, the toe.
Mm-hmm. So again, you could, but that's a disqualification that won't change. So be prepared for that if you do choose to show your rabbit. I have rabbits who have broken toes before, and it's unfortunate, it's frustrating, but they still have value to me. One of my best herd bucks that I keep for breeding has a broken toe, and that limited his show career, but he was still valuable to me, and I kept him around. I did not continue to show him, but I knew that he was a pretty darn good rabbit, so I kept him around.
Would you recommend, or can you recommend, a good meat breed for market?
There are quite a few commercial breeds out there, breeds that are commonly used for meat pens or fryers, include the New Zealand, the Californian, but there are some less common breeds or more uncommon breeds like the cinnamon or the cream d'argent, who might also be good options. But keep in mind that like a cream d'argent might be harder to find, where New Zealand is fairly common.
I'm going through my list, and Brian, do you have any that I might have missed?
We just had a couple more that came up here. It has a chocolate buck having a bad molting issue. What can I do? I feed him oats and black sunflower seeds. Also tried calling manna and nothing works.
So the rabbit is molting continuously. Is that kind of what I'm getting, Brian?
I can verify that. I pretty much read you the... Yes.
Okay, great. I would maybe cut back on some of that protein. I wonder if the protein might be too high, especially if you have, some calf manna in its diet. Maybe opt for some hay. That fiber might help. But know too that rabbits will periodically molt. Every once in a while, those molts will be heavy molts, and sometimes it just takes time for them to get through it.
Okay. Another question that just popped up: should you feed your rabbit more hay than pellets? Can they eat silage?
So I always recommend you feed a complete rabbit pellet. I get pretty nervous when people start to replace the pellets with other feeds. When it comes to hay, it's okay to feed hay, but make sure you're not feeding so much hay the rabbit's not eating its pellets, because those pellets are a complete source of nutrition.
Shane, I went back through my list, and there was early on a participant asked, would you talk about, or can you talk about, the recent RHDV2 disease that is in the rabbits that's causing a challenge within the rabbit industry?
Yes, I can talk about that. RHD is a scary virus. There's a current outbreak in the American Southwest. It's in New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Texas, California, and southern Colorado. Now, it's a very contagious disease, and it's very concerning for rabbit owners. There is a vaccine, but it's kind of tough for us to get our hands on that vaccine, and it is expensive. So I recommend all rabbit owners, whether you have one or if you have hundreds, practice good biosecurity. Be hesitant to bring new rabbits in. I suggest you quarantine new rabbits if you're purchasing them before you introduce them to the rest of your herd. Make sure you're keeping pests to a minimum. Control those insects because they can be carriers. Make sure you have trap set if you have rodents around. We want to make sure to limit exposure to that virus. And that's good practice, whether or not there is a virus outbreak or not. We want to keep our rabbits healthy and safe. Wash your hands. Don't bring in other rabbits without knowing a little bit of history of those rabbits first. If you have more questions you'd love to run by me, please reach out to Leanne and she can connect you with my contact info, and I will do my best to help you out.
There actually was one more question that came up. The rubric that you had shown on how to judge showmanship or what's in showmanship, is there a way we can get a hold of that information?
Brian actually did put that link in there, and I can scroll through and share that link again, but he did go ahead and share the ARBA one, and then I will also post the one that I showed underneath the link for our recording. So it'll be on that livestock events page, which I've posted in there a couple times now, so you guys can access that as well.
Very good. Thank you.
I just reposted that link.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. Excellent. Well, again, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate all your compliments in the chat box that you've given. Clearly, this was highly sought out and everybody had a lot of good feedback. We really appreciate your time and energy, Shane. Your expertise is certainly valuable, especially to North Dakota, because we don't currently have any rabbit showmanship documents published in our state. So this is kind of the first of its kind through here. So just know that your knowledge is being extended and reached to many places. So we're very appreciative.
Excellent. Well, I was happy to do it. This was fun.
With that, thank you guys for joining us tonight. This finally sums up our awesome showmanship clinic series. Again, if you did not catch any of those, visit that website and they are recorded, so you can go back and review those. Maybe you missed a section and you can fast forward and see it again, so they can be viewed as many times as you would like. So thank you guys, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.